Hello, it's Micah. We're going to do these back to back. This is Agency and Progression Part 2. Drink a little Pepsi. I shouldn't yawn so much. I apologize. I do these videos when I have chance. So here we go. Part 2, Identifying the Hinge Points. President David O. McKay said, classify the things in which Satan tempted Jesus with after fasting, and you will find that under one of those three, nearly every given temptation that makes you and me spotted comes to us. And these three things are: 1, a temptation of appetite; 2, a temptation to pride; 3, a temptation for the world. Now that talk was given in Conference Report April 1911. Is that right? I'll have to check that. That seems a little bit early. David O. McKay. This was found in the New Testament Study Manual. Are there not major hymn points? Major decisions which you and I have to make in our lives regarding appetite, regarding pride, regarding the world? Yes. Are there little decisions feeding into each of these? Obviously. Are these the hinge points of this life? Yes. Just like previously discussed, the small decisions we make in each category determine which wolf gets larger, and thus which wolf wins the battle at the hinge point, or the large decisions. It is established doctrine that men and women have different strengths and weaknesses. Together, the sexes help each other due to their complementary strengths. That a male intelligence and a female intelligence are different. We are unique and different from each other. It is easy for members to accept that the sexes possess different strengths. It's easy for us to say, yeah, well, women are better with children, or for example, it's easy for us to say strengths. But if one is true, they're both true. Thus, we have to accept that the sexes have different weaknesses, and therefore are prone to different temptations, and thus face different major choices. A choice that might be extremely important for a man might not be as important a choice for a woman, and vice versa, such as going on a mission. 1. Appetites of the flesh come in two main forms: sexual and physical, food, sleep, etc. The two main hinge points here are: 1, will you or will you not wait to have sex until you are married and only have sex with your spouse? And 2, will you or will you not live the word of wisdom, or law of health, which includes being able to run and not faint, as well as eat all things in moderation. Examples of small choices that feed into this hinge point are dating in couples, not necking, wearing modest clothing, exercising, limiting treats and sugars, etc. Choosing the right is visually seen in healthy-looking individuals with healthy marriages, and choosing the wrong is visibly seen in individuals being obese, having failed marriages due to sexual immorality, etc. Men historically have shown a weakness towards sexual appetites, and women more physical. Thus, we find that women who can control their physiques are considered desirable and virtuous to a man, just as a man who can control his sexuality is to a woman. We find in the world more sexually out of control men, and women who espouse chocolate is better than sex. 2. Pride is choosing any other path other than the Lord's path. The Lord makes his way known through the keys of the priesthood and through personal revelation. The choice of choosing another way over the Lord's way can either be a direct choice in choosing yours over the Lord's, or the second way is we indirectly choose another way over the Lord's by choosing to follow those without the keys over those with keys. So let me reread that. The second way is we indirectly choose another way over the Lord's by choosing to follow those without keys over those with keys. So we choose to follow somebody like our best friend over our bishop. The reasons why we directly or indirectly make this choice not to follow the Lord is due to a perceived superiority, i.e., I know better or she knows better. These perceived notions of grandeur come in two forms. I know better, she knows better because of experience or personal knowledge. Or I know better, she knows better because that person has a higher perceived weighted title, such as king, professor, etc. The two main hinge points here are 1. Do you or do you not gain a testimony of priesthood keys? And 2. Do you or do you not gain a testimony of personal revelation? Examples of small choices that feed into this hinge point are saying daily prayers, listening to your father, listening to your bishop, seeking for revelation in your prayers, asking your father or bishop for advice, and then following it, getting baptized, going on a mission. Choosing the right is reflected in sustaining of keys and hearkening unto personal revelation. Choosing the wrong is visibly seen in not following or murmuring against the keys because the individual is too young, too inexperienced, etc., or the perceived title isn't important enough. Such titles such as father versus a professor. It is also reflected in not following personal revelation. Historically, men have been far more prejudiced in regard to experience. They're far more anti-authoritarian, making them far less likely to follow orders from those they can't evaluate firsthand, and far more likely to be bamboozled by people who can put on a facade of higher intelligence and experience. Women are far more authoritarian and far less interested in people's experience. They have a harder time following orders from people with experience that have perceived lower title weight, and thus are far more likely to be bamboozled by people who throw a hefty title around, such as a professor, CEO, etc. This example of this would be if a professor and a plumber went into your home and a plumber with 40 years of experience said, hey, this is what's wrong with your plumbing, and a professor said, no, what's actually going on is global warming, most women would side with the professor because experience doesn't mean anything. The title means something. That's what this means. The church shows more men having problems with young, inexperienced keys. So they have a problem with elders, young bishops, or branch presidents, etc. And they have a problem with being bamboozled by knowledgeable friends. I know a friend, he's experienced. Women have more problems with titles that they don't believe are important enough to warrant more revelation that they themselves can receive. So fathers, deacons, quorums, presidents, etc. And they are far more likely to be bamboozled by people with hefty titles. 3, the world comes alluring in two different forms: power among our peers and riches of the world. The two main hinge points here are 1, will you or will you not choose parenthood over worldly status? And 2, will you or will you not choose family life over materialistic social lifestyle? Examples of small choices that feed into this hinge point are prioritizing education over starting a family, choosing to get married in the temple, choosing baby clothes over a wedding dress, starting a family as early as possible, learning self-reliance over dependence, saving money versus spending money, having no more clothes than you need, donating the rest, minimalistic jewelry, things with special meaning, let's say, while on mission, not chasing after titles such as zone leaders, and instead tracting, working, stopping the habit of asking people, what is your job or title? etc. Choosing the right is visually seen in men putting fatherhood first and women being minimalistic. And choosing the wrong is visibly seen in men pursuing success outside the home at the expense of the home, and women pursuing things for the home over children in the home. Historically, men have desired and or fell victim to power, stature, position, authority among men, and the desire to rule over others. Historically, women have been much more prone to materialism, and that means things like clothes, fancy cars, big houses, etc. While on the other hand, they have shown a readiness to give up power and position to stay at home with their children. And the world shows more men pursuing stature, power in careers, and women pursuing the next shoe. Now, this does not mean all of this. Here's the caveat, because everyone's gonna know somebody who knows somebody and get upset. This does not mean that just because you are a certain intelligence, that is male or female, that you will be guaranteed to have these strengths or weaknesses. Rather, on a whole, generally speaking, these things do hold true. Regardless, however, of gender, you are accountable to make the right decision for every hinge point. There might be some hinge points that are easier for women to make and some that are easier for men to make. That doesn't matter. What matters is you still have to make the right choice. You still have to make the right choice. So that ends part 2 of this part 5 series of my paper Agency and Progression. Part 1, we talked about the importance of hinge points, what they are generally speaking. In this one, we identified the major hinge points of this life specifically. So, thanks for joining me. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next one, part 3, Agency and Progression.